यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन, यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन, यमुना तीरा वनचारी, यमुना तीरा वनचारी। जय रात माधव कुंज बिहारी, जय रात माधव कुंज बिहारी। जय गोपीचन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी, जय गोपीचन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी। यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन, यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन, तीरा वनचारी, यमुना तीरा वनचारी। जय रात माधव कुंज बिहारी। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा श्रील प्रभुपदा। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परमहंस स्तोत्र सदा श्रीमद इस्लामिक जैसे श्री भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। इस्कॉन संस्थापकाचार्य श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परमहंस स्तोत्र सदा श्रीमद भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद की जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद श्री गौर किशोरदास महाराज की जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद सच्चिदानंद श्री भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्री जगन्नाथ दास महाराज की जय। जय श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भट्टदास रत्ना षट गोस्वामी प्रभु की जय। रामाचार्य श्री हरदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से गो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री द्वैत गदाधर शिवसादि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोपिनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। श्री श्री गौरांगी बैंगलोर ईश्वर भगवान की जय। श्री मायापुर धाम की जय। श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय। गंगा मई की जय। यमुना मई की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। तुलसी देवी की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। इस्कॉन भक्तमाल गोविंद की जय। क्षमावित भक्त वृंद की जय। गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। All glories to the assembled. All glories to the assembled. All glories to the assembled. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All goes to Sri Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam. Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayanudire. Nityaprayeshu Apatreshu Nityam Bhagavate Sevaya. Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtihi. Hare Krishna, welcome you all to the Friday morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. Today we are discussing from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 12, Text 43. Yashatra Bandhur Bhuvi Tasyadiruhdham Anma Durukshid Apivarshapu Ghai Satpancha Varsho Yad Ahobir Alpai Prasadya Vaikuntam Avapa Tatpadam Yashatra Bandhur Bhuvi Tasyadiruhdham Anma Durukshid Apivarshapu Ghai Satpancha Varsho Yad Ahoviralpaihi Prasadya Vaikuntam Avapa Tatpadam Yashatra Bandhur Bhuvitasyadirudam Anva Rurukshid Api Varsha Pugai Satpancha Varsho Yat Ahoviralpaihi Prasadya Vaikuntam Avapa Tatpadam. Jai. Dhruva Maharaj attained an exalted position at the age of only 5 or 6 years after undergoing austerity for 6 months. Alas, a great Kshatriya cannot achieve such a position even after undergoing austerities for many, many years. Dhruva Maharaj is described herein as Shatra Bandhu, which indicate that he was not fully trained as a Kshatriya because he was only 5 years old. He was not a mature Kshatriya. A Kshatriya or a Brahmana has to take training. A boy born in the family of a Brahmana is not immediately a Brahmana. He has to take up the training and the purificatory process. The great sage Narada Muni was very proud of having a devotee disciple like Dhruva Maharaj. He had many other disciples, but he was very pleased with Dhruva Maharaj because in one lifetime, by dint of his severe penances and austerities, he had achieved Vaikuntha, which was never achieved by any other king's son or Rajarishi throughout the whole universe. There is the instance of King Bharata, who was also a great devotee, but he attained Vaikuntha Loka in 3 lives. In the first life, although he executed austerities in the forest, he became a victim of too much affection for a small deer. And in his next life, he had to take birth as a deer. Although he had a deer's body, he remembered his spiritual position, but he still had to wait until the next life for perfection. In the next life, he took birth as a Jadabharata. Of course, in that life, he was completely freed from all material entanglement and he attained perfection and was elevated to Vaikuntha Loka. The lesson from the life of Dhruva Maharaj is that if one likes, one can attain Vaikuntha Loka in one life without waiting for many other lives. My Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada, used to say that every one of his disciples could attain Vaikuntha Loka in this life without waiting for another life to execute devotional service. One simply has to become as serious and sincere as Dhruva Maharaj, then it is quite possible to attain Vaikuntha Loka and go back to home, back to Godhead in one life. I just need 1 second. Just sorry. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manopishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yudapata Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganargunata Tam Tam Shri Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijanasamtam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Saganal Vishakan Vitamsya He Krishna Karunasindhu Deenabandho Jagatpate Kopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Taptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanushte Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarubhyasya Kripasindhubhyo Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavatla Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Moham karoti vachalam bangam nandi devir mekpadam aham bande shivaram dhanitaranam paramantamadam Shri Chaitanya Vishwar. Hare Krishna. So here in this verse, there's a mention of how Dhruva Maharaj attained perfection in one lifetime because he underwent a lot of austerities for almost 6 months, even he was just 5 or 6 years old. And the translation says that such an exalted position cannot be achieved without undergoing many austerities, unless until one performs austerities for many, many years. So in the purport, there's a mention about Dhruva Maharaj being born in a Kshatriya family. So just by being born in a Kshatriya family does not necessarily conclude that Dhruva Maharaj is also a Kshatriya. So he had to undergo a lot of austerities at a very early age to attain that perfection. I'm not going to that detail, but here, in a nutshell, he lived few days breathing air, and the last few days he was eating fruits and roots. Like we have Ekadasi, he was doing this for many days, and the last concluding stage of this austerity, he survived just breathing air for a few days. So this is the austerity that Dhruva Maharaj performed at a very young age of 5 or 6 years. Otherwise, it would not have been possible to achieve this perfection. So Shastras explain that there are 4 pillars of religion, that is austerity, mercy, truthfulness, and cleanliness. And unless and until one practices these 4 principles, it is not possible to attain perfection in spiritual life. So austerity is one very important aspect. We'll look at some of the examples of austerity. What is the meaning of austerity? Austerity is basically a voluntary acceptance of a bodily inconvenience for a higher purpose. That is, higher purpose is knowing Vasudeva or his incarnations. The Lord himself says in Bhagavad Gita, Vedesya Sarver Ahmeva Vedya Vedanta Veda Vidayavacham. Purpose of knowing Vedas is to know me. There's also a quote in second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam which mentions that anything we do, austerities are meant to please Krishna, sacrifices are meant to please Krishna, whatever the worship of the deities is meant to please Krishna. So the goal of all our activity should be to please Krishna, not our own self. Sometimes devotees also tend to understand that they should be in the forefront, but actually the correct understanding is that all austerities, all services are to be performed to please Krishna. Vasudeva and Devaki performed a lot of austerities for many thousands of years. Brahma also performed tapasya for many thousands of years just to understand who he himself was, and then the tapasya to create. Other side of examples are like Hiranyakashipu and Ravana. They also performed austerities for many thousands of years. That is for their own sense gratification, and they wanted to exploit whatever boon benediction that they got. And the end the result was misery. So any austerity that is performed for sense gratification, the result will always be misery. But on the other hand, austerities that are performed in spiritual life lead to success. Success. There is a process given. Uh, there is a quote in Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 5th chapter, 1st sloka, where Lord Rishabdeva instructs his sons. He had 100 sons. So he instructs his sons, my dear boys, of all the living entities who have accepted material bodies in this world, one who has been awarded this human form should not work hard day and night simply for sense gratification, which is available even for dogs and hogs that eat stool. So one should not toil day and night just to achieve some sense gratification. And that sense gratification is available even for lower species of life, like dogs or hogs that eat stool. Then he says that one should engage in penance and austerity to attain the divine position of devotional service. So, devotional service cannot be performed without performing austerities. Now, what austerities can one perform in devotional life? One is we might not want to associate with devotees, but that is austerity of association with devotees. One might not want to chant, but the austerity of devotional service is chanting the holy name of the Lord. So these are all austerities that have to be performed, even if we don't like it. So then he says, Rishabdev says, by such activity, one's heart is purified. And when one attains this position, he attains eternal blissful life, which is transcendental to material happiness and which continues forever. So all other activities that we do, excepting devotional service, they all lead to misery. But when one performs devotional service in unmotivated and uninterrupted manner, then he can attain the position of, like Dhruva Maharaj, as Srila Prabhupada mentions the purport, and reach the destination that is Vaikuntha Loka. Dhruva Maharaj uh, performed his tapasya both physically as well as mentally. Many times we might perform physical austerities, but then it may not be situated on a mental platform also. But there's a quote that Dhruva Maharaj performed this tapasya both physically and mentally. For example, we might be chanting, or we might be reading, or we might be hearing, or something. Our mind may be elsewhere. So it is necessary that all these austerities are performed both physically and mentally. Sri Jiva Goswami, he explains that tapa means spiritual association. And tapa means the difficulty undertaken by the disciple to fulfill the order of the spiritual master. The spiritual master generally gives in our sampradaya two instructions, chant 16 rounds and then follow four regulative principles. So that is a tapasya for a disciple. So Jiva Goswami also explains that tapasya also means spiritual association, because without association one cannot practice spiritual life. So Dhruva Maharaj is described here as Shatra Bandhu. There is also mentioned in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is Brahma Bandhu. So Ashwatthama was an example of being a Brahma Bandhu, as he was the son of Dronacharya. Now, what does this Bandhu means? One may take birth in a Kshatriya family or a Brahmana family, but if he does not undergo the process of training, then he is called Kshatriya Bandhu. Or if he does not act as a Kshatriya, he is called a Kshatriya Bandhu. And if one is born in a Brahmin family and does not act like a Brahmana, then he is a Brahma Bandhu. So that is why it is said that a Kshatriya or a Brahmana has to take training to become successful as a Kshatriya or a Brahmana. I'll keep this training part of it to the end of the class, and we'll go through some examples as to how training is the Srimad Bhagavatam and other things, how great devotees have succeeded in one lifetime itself. So this training is required for one to apply uh, the knowledge that is gained. There are two things. One is jnana and the other one is vijnana. Jnana is knowledge that you gain by association on by reading the scriptures, etc. And vijnana is basically application of the knowledge that you gain into practical life. is mentioned about how Narada Muni was very proud of Dhruva Maharaj because in one lifetime Dhruva Maharaj completed his austerities and attained perfection due to his austerities, which was not achieved by anyone else. So other examples that are given, mentioned in the purport, are like Bharat Maharaj. Bharat Maharaj was also a great devotee of the Lord, and he was so determined that he thought that it was time for him to hand over. The earlier years, the system was that the leader or the king would hand over the kingdom to the next generation and then go for perfection of life, that is self-realization. You may go to the forest or mountain, perform austerities. So in the case of Bharat Maharaj, at a very early age, he wanted to go to the forest to perform tapasya. But then he got carried away by a deer whom he brought in his ashram. And finally, at the end of his life, he was thinking only of the deer. And finally, he got a deer's body. So he had to take the birth of a deer in his second life. But somehow, uh, Acharyas explained that even if one gets a body of an animal, like in the case of Bharat Maharaj, he got a body of his deer, but the spiritual uh, uh, insight that is there within the living entity, or it is also called vasana, that remains, it doesn't go by change of body. And particularly in devotional service gets carried to the next life if one is not perfected. So though Bharat Maharaj took the body of a deer in his second life, whatever devotional service he had done in his previous life gets carried forward. And because the Lord, situated as Paramatma, is a witness and he directs the living, wandering living entity. Another example, if Gajendra also performed devotional service in his previous life. So though he had to take the body of an elephant, but then he was able to perfect, remembering the devotional service of previous life, and he became delivered. So similarly, Bharat Maharaj had, though he had to take a deer's body, he remembered his spiritual position of his previous life. So he had to wait one more birth, and the third birth he took birth as Jada, and he was a renounced person right from the beginning of his life, from the time he appeared. So he wandered in the forest as if he was a fool. But then finally, there's a long conversation between King Rahugana and Bharat Maharaj, and then and Jadabharata, and Jadabharata attained perfection and went to Vaikuntha Loka. So this is an example of how Bharat Maharaj has achieved this perfection in 3 lifetimes, whereas Dhruva Maharaj got one in one lifetime itself. In this purport, Srila Prabhupada also mentions about Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakura. He says, my Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada, used to say that every one of his disciples could attain Vaikuntha Loka in this life without waiting for another life to execute devotional service. Srila Prabhupada also often used to quote that one can attain perfection in one lifetime itself. Let's take the example of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakura itself. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakura appeared as the son of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in Jagannath Puri. So Bhaktivinoda Thakura, he was a great devotee of the Lord, and he prayed to Lord Jagannath in Puri to give an assistant who can help him in continuing this, in spreading the message of the personality of Godhead. So as a result of this prayer that he offered to Lord Jagannath, it is said that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakura was born as the sixth son of Bhaktivinoda Thakura. And he gave him the name as Bimala Prasad, because Bimala Devi is there as a Yoga Maya expansion in Jagannath Puri temple. So she is the custodian of all the prasadam of the temple. So after it is offered to Lord Jagannath, then it comes to her and then it gets distributed. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur considered that Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakura was that prasad that came from Lord Jagannath and then came to Bimala Devi, and so he named Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakura as Bimala Prasad. Of course, later on he got initiated and his name was changed to Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakura. So it is said that right from his birth, he was born as a great devotee. He was very, very beautiful. He had complexion like a molten gold. His beauty was defeating the beauty of even a golden lotus. So when he was just 6 months old, it was time for Rath Yatra, and Bhaktivinoda Thakura was en route from Jagannath Puri temple to Gundicha Mandir. And it so happened that the chariot stopped in front of Bhaktivinoda Thakura's house and it did not move for 2 days. So Bhagavati Devi, wife of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura, took the child and placed this child to Lord Jagannath. And as soon as she placed him at the lotus feet of Lord Jagannath, uh, the child tried to embrace the Lord, and immediately a garland fell on the child, and it was an indication that this child is not an ordinary child. It was he has appeared for a special purpose. And Sri Bhaktivinoda Thakura, being an astrologer, said that he has appeared to achieve he has appeared to assist Bhaktivinoda Thakura in this Lord's mission. And Bhaktivinoda Thakura, being a pure devotee of the Lord, he could understand and he took extraordinary care of Vimala Prasad. So when he was born itself, it is said that an umbilical cord was wrapped around his throat. There is an umbilical cord that connects the child and the mother, and this umbilical cord was wrapped around like we have Brahminical thread, like that. The umbilical cord was wrapped around his throat. So the family astrologer also saw his horoscopes, and then he said that he has never seen a horoscope like this in his entire lifetime. At a very young age, Bhakti Siddhanta Vimla Prasad also had 3 lines in his neck, and he had 3 lines in his waist. And it is said these are the symptoms of a Mahapurusha or a great personality. When he was a small child, he once ate mango without offering to the Lord. So when Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura saw this, he chastised, he just told Bhakti Vimala Prasad that you cannot eat anything without offering to the Lord. So Vimala Prasad took it very seriously. It is said it was a lesson for him, and throughout his life, Vimala Prasad never took a single mango. So that was the extraordinary character of Vimal Prasad. Then it is said that at 7, he memorized all the verses of Bhagavad Gita and explaining, not only memorize the verses, but also explaining the meaning of each of these verses very nicely. He also studied his father's books and he was very intelligent. His achievements were remarkable. At some point of time, he thought that this studying in the school was an impediment to the progress of his spiritual life. So he was taken as an advisor to the king, but then the king did not want to leave Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakura, but still Vimala Prasad uh, convinced him of the necessity of spiritual life. And then in return for that, the king gave a very long pension in respect of his services, because the king was also a great devotee of the Lord. Then it is said that at 13, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura gave him a Maha Mantra and a Tulasi bead. And at 21, he undertook a tour of South India and wanted to learn the procedure of deity worship. He understood teachings of the Sri Sampradaya. And after the tour, he was asked by Bhaktivinoda Thakura to go to Navadvip and perform bhajana. So at 31, it is said that he came to Yoga Pita, which Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura identifies as the birthplace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he performed intense bhajana, chanting 300,000 names a day just like Srila Haridas Thakura. And in spite of all these, he was such an exalted personality with a lot of compassion to his disciples. It is said that at night, when his disciples would sleep off, he would go and check. And if somebody is not, because in winter time, winter would be severe. So he would go and check. And if somebody is not covered his body, he would cover them with blankets to avoid getting cold. So this was the compassionate nature of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakura. And he also mixed with people from all the religions and got donations for building his ashram. And because he was very liked by them, he got 300 acres of land donated by them to him. He was also known for establishing the 64 Gaudiya Mats. This was the success of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakura. Another example is Prahlad Maharaj itself. Uh, it is said that when Hiranyakashipu went to Mandara mountain to perform severe austerities, in his absence, uh, his wife Kayadu became pregnant. And when the demigods saw her, they wanted to kill her, thinking that she is pregnant and the child in the womb will also be a demon. So when they tried to attempt this, that is when Narada Muni appeared on the scene, and they told her, and he convinced Indra that the child is an extraordinary child. He will not be a demon. So Narada Muni took Kayadu to his ashram, and there he gives spiritual knowledge to uh, Kayadu as well as to the child in the womb, who was none other than Prahlad Maharaj. So Prahlad Maharaj admits in his preaching activities to his colleagues as to how uh, he continued to have that knowledge imbibed in him by Narada Muni, whereas his mother forgot the knowledge because being a woman, she was also less intelligent. And in this way, Prahlad Maharaj was born as a devotee right from his birth. And Hiranyakashipu actually tried to kill him using many methods, like throwing him into the fire, throwing him from the top of a mountain, and so forth. But Prahlad Maharaj all the time was chanting the holy name of the Lord and sought protection from the Lord. So he was fully protected because he was a great devotee right from his birth. That is how Prahlad Maharaj gives instructions to his classmates. Uh, Narad Muni is a great saint. Now, uh, Narad Muni took Kayadu to his ashram, though he was a great brahmachari. So, examples are given that though Narad Muni took a woman to his ashram, he still continued to be celibate. He did not get contaminated by the presence of Kayadu, who was a woman, but still continued to give her instructions. So another example that is given is that Haridas Thakura did not get contaminated by the presence of a prostitute. Narad Muni, so the process in every institution, there is a process uh, that is established. So Prahlad Maharaj, even though he was in the womb of his mother, he was fully convinced of the knowledge that was given by Narad Muni, and he understood how to attain perfection in life by bhakti, the process of bhakti yoga, and that is one of the important aspects of uh, bhakti yoga. Uh, Another example that I'm giving is about Loknath Goswami. It is said Loknath Goswami was born to his father Padmanabha and his mother's name was Sri Sita Devi. So, when Loknath Goswami took birth to his father and mother, he also had a younger brother, so forth. So, right from his early childhood, it is said that Loknath Goswami was not interested in family life. So one day he gave up his father and mother and left his home at a very early age, and he went to Mayapur in Navadvipa to take darshan of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Mahaprabhu embraced Lokanath Goswami with a lot of affection, and then Mahaprabhu ordered Lokanath Goswami to go to Vrindavan. But Lokanath Goswami did not want to have feel separation from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave him an assurance that he will see him in Vrindavan. So in Bhakti in Bhakti Ratnakara, there's a mention that out of separation from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Loknath Goswami would always be weeping and weeping because he could not tolerate separation from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Later on, as Loknath Goswami was bidding farewell to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Lord gave him some confidential message and he was consoled by that. After that, it is said that Loknath Goswami never returned home. Rather, he was wandering from one place to the other, always thinking about the Lord. And after after a long journey, he came to Vrindavan. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then, in the meantime, took sannyas and went to Jagannath Puri. Loknath Goswami then was wondering that I'm staying alone here, and since Mahaprabhu has taken sannyas, he should go and see him. But then by the time he came, Mahaprabhu already left for his South India tour. And then he was again feeling depressed and again came back to Vrindavan. Then it is said that one day his heart was broken and he was literally weeping, but then he didn't want to break the vow that he has given to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There he met Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, and Gopala Bhatta Goswami and others. So in the midst of that, Lokanath Goswami was the eldest of all the Goswamis, and he was fully absorbed in Krishna's service, Krishna Prema. When he was wandering throughout in Vrindavan, in one of the forests, it is said that he had a great desire in his mind to establish worship of the deity and render service to Krishna. Understanding Lokanath Goswami's desire, it is said that Krishna himself appeared before him and offered to give him a deity, and Krishna told him that you worship this deity. This deity's name will be Radha Vinoda. After Krishna left, again Lokanath Goswami became stuck with separation from the Lord. But the Lord told him that I have come here personally to satisfy your desire of rendering service to me. I live in this forest, but by the Kishori Kunda, there's a kunda called Kishori Kunda. You build a residence for me, but right now you give me something to eat very quickly. So Lokanath Goswami was bound with ecstasy, and after that he prepared some rice and fresh banana and offered it to the Lord, and the Lord also accepted it. And in that Kishori Kunda, the Lokanath Goswami made his own home. He built a bhajan kutir where he performed his bhajana. And Lokanath Goswami actually stitched a small cloth bag, and he used to keep this Radha Vinoda deity in his neck in that bag. So this is how he had deep attachment for this deity. In his old age, it is said he performed a lot of bhajana and then entered into the eternal manifest pastimes of the Lord. So this is how Lokanath Goswami also was a great devotee of the Lord right from his birth, and then he entered into the spiritual world. Another important point that is mentioned in the sloka is about training. Now, everyone has some sort of a material or spiritual goal. And that goal, achieving the goal, is generally not possible even in the material platform without a training. Is one of the reasons people fail in their material life also, because they may be doing a BCom which has more to do with commerce, and they may be doing some other service not related to that. In fact, many people have desire to go to US and all. This is one of the hot articles these days. People are prepared to go to US and stay there and prepared to do any service, even serving prasadam, serving food or cleaning the tables and chairs. Now, it has no connection with their career or what they have done in the school or college. But then they have a goal that they have to leave this country and go abroad and settle there. So like that, if you see even on a material platform, one's career has to be should have a goal. Otherwise, the people, the common man gets lost. And when one decides on a goal, then he also has to requires a training to achieve that goal. Without training, it is not possible to achieve a goal, even on a material platform. In spiritual life, uh, it's all the more important because if you look at ISKCON as an institution itself, Srila Prabhupada established this movement, and not only he established the movement, he initiated a lot of Western disciples who were new to the Sanatana Dharma. They had no exposure to spiritual life, and many were even living a life of hippies. But Srila Prabhupada initiated them and converted them to happies. And Srila Prabhupada personally set an example by cooking himself, washing the vessels, etc. And he gave training to all his disciples. And we are learning what Srila Prabhupada has given training to them through his disciples. So, without a proper training, one cannot become successful. So, Srila Prabhupada established this international Krishna conscious movement with an agenda that at least people who are ignorant, they take up spiritual life and become successful either in one lifetime or two lifetime or three lifetime. But he made it a point to give training to all his disciples. So the point is that spiritual goals have also to be defined. For example, though instructions are given, but still we also need to have some goals defined. Like I want to be a good pujari, I want to worship the deities, I want to be a good preacher, or I want to be a good cook serving the Lord. So the point is that the knowledge comes from the parampara system. For example, if we take even our own Bhagavad Gita and read it at home, we will not understand the essence of Bhagavad Gita. We might get lost somewhere. So everyone needs at least a Padarkshaka Guru. Everyone needs a Shiksha Guru to understand this knowledge. So the scriptures are given, but there must also that's why there must also be a guru who can give training to the disciple. Guru means it need not be Diksha Guru. Diksha Guru is one of them. It is said there are three types of Guru: Pada Pradarshaka Guru, Shiksha Guru, and Diksha Guru. Pada Pradarshaka Guru is one who may give you the path to take up spiritual life. Like in my case, when I was there in the Gulf, I got somebody who was actually going to the art of living. So and I used to spend my time in the clubs on the weekend, but then he said, "Why do you waste your time, money, etc. here? Why don't you take a spiritual life?" So like that, there can be some pada padarshaka guru. Then afterward, one may get a shiksha guru who need not be the diksha guru, and the shiksha guru basically gives training and knowledge and training. That's why I said jnana and vijnana. He gives jnana, and then it's up to the disciple to apply it in his personal life by practical application and become successful. So that is the position of a Shiksha Guru. And then if one wants to progress further, he takes a Diksha Guru. So this knowledge is given in the disciplic succession, which Prabhupada has mentioned in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita also. So it is important that one establishes his spiritual goals, also defines his spiritual goal also, and then accordingly one should take knowledge and apply it practically and become successful. So training is required, and the earlier that one takes up the process of training, the easier it becomes for one to adopt. For example, at a later age, one might not have a taste for training as much as at an early age. So training is a very important part of uh, spiritual life. So with this, I conclude the class for the day. If one, so Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying that if one becomes as serious and sincere as Dhruva Maharaj, it is possible for one to reach, attain Vaikuntha Loka in one lifetime. So this is a lesson from Dhruva Maharaj for us. If anybody has got any questions or comments, they can ask me. So if there are no comments or there is no questions, I'll take the class as closed. Thank you all very much. Granthad Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki